Hello there. It's midnight here in Algiers. You're watching World News Program on All 24 News. I'm Karim Fazakar, your host for tonight. Coming up next are the top stories. The Zionist occupation ramps up airstrikes and artillery attacks on central Gaza camps. In 24 hours, 164 Palestinians were killed in 14 Zionist massacres, with additional casualties and a fierce bombardment on Rafah. Coming up as well, the Gaza Strip faces an imminent health crisis, with the World Health Organization verifying that 500,000 Palestinians in Gaza are grappling with infectious diseases. Following heightened international criminal investigations, South Africa calls for the Zionist entity to face charges of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs hails the move. Also ahead in our news. And in the aftermath of Russia's largest air attack on Ukraine in 2 years, Moscow reports 10 casualties and 45 injuries from a Ukrainian bombing in Belgrad. The details after the break. Hello again and welcome to the program. First, an in-depth look at the unfortunate events in the occupied Palestinian territories. In the last 24 hours, 165 Palestinians were martyred and 250 others were injured in 14 Zionist massacres. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza reports a total of 21,672 martyrs and 56,165 injured due to the ongoing Zionist aggression. In recent hours, around 100 Palestinians were killed in Zionist raids targeting central Gaza, with an additional 158 injured.
During the past 24 hours, the Israeli occupation committed 14 massacres in Gaza cities. As a result, 165 people were martyred and 250 injured. This number accounts just for casualties brought to Gaza hospitals, but we think that there are hundreds more martyrs and wounded who couldn't be brought to the hospitals because of intensive bombardment by Israeli occupation, which prevented paramedics from reaching the airstrikes areas.
And speaking of the bombardment, for the 85th straight day, the Zionist occupation persists in bombing various areas of the Gaza Strip, resulting in numerous casualties and injuries, amplifying thus the humanitarian crisis. Violent artillery shelling strikes east of the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza were accompanied as well by extensive shell fire from occupation warships on the coast of central and southern Gaza. The details with Osama Ayadi.
For 85 agonizing days, Gaza is still enduring a relentless Zionist onslaught, sparing no innocent life. Unarmed civilians, women and babies become pawns of this frightening struggle. The toll 20 Palestinians, their lives were cut short due to heinous crimes perpetrated the crashing might of Zionist war machine. The house of the Adwan family, a refuge from prior onslaughts, falls prey to the unrelenting assault of Zionist tanks. Children held tightly by their mothers face a premature end, while some miraculously survived are left trapped beneath the weight of debris. Rescue teams couldn't reach them due to the continuous bombings.
We were sleeping at home, and we suddenly heard an explosion and the stones started falling. So I opened the window, and I heard the neighbors calling for help. So we came and found out a two-floor building that was full of displaced people, women and children, collapsed on them. I don't know. We have been asking for help for 3 months. Nobody is listening to us. We are saying that again. Help us. That's enough.
Zionist tanks and airborne aggressors relentlessly pound various regions of the Gaza Strip, leaving in their wake a trail of massive destruction. the Rafah region, the southern stretch of the Strip, along with Al-Bureij, Nusayrat and Khan Yunis, were all mercilessly struck.
The situation has gone beyond the limit. The situation is very hard. We're asking the world to protect us and stop the aggression towards us. We're helpless people that have nothing to do with all of that. There are no weapons or rockets here. We and our neighbor are respectful people.
Ambulances raced to Khan Yunis hospital carrying children who survived the brutal bombardment. Yet the unrelenting Zionist aggression persists, with recent figures revealing a heavy toll. Over 160 killed, and the possibility of more victims looms ahead. Piles of rubble scattered far and wide on Gaza streets, serving as silent memorials to those who couldn't be saved.
In related context, the World Health Organization is warning of an imminent infectious disease outbreak in Gaza due to the collapsing health system and ongoing Zionist bombings. The number of Palestinians seeking refuge in crowded health facilities is exacerbating the crisis as well. Zahra Farjani reports.
Expressing deep concerns about the rise in tensions in the occupied Palestinian territories, the World Health Organization is sounding the alarm on a growing infectious disease threat in war-torn Gaza. WHO's Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus took to the X platform to underscore that children and women are the ones bearing the brunt of the Zionist war's impact.
About 500,000 people were infected with infectious diseases in Gaza from mid-October to mid-December for reasons related to continued large-scale displacement of people to all parts of southern Gaza. Nearly 180,000 people suffer from respiratory infections and more than 136,000 cases of diarrhea, most of which affect children under the age of 5.
According to the available information, Tedros revealed that tens of thousands of Gazans face scabies, smallpox and severe jaundice.
More than 55,000 cases of lice and scabies have occurred in Gaza due to poor hygiene, while more than 5,000 people have been infected with chickenpox, and about 43,000 are suffering from skin rashes, in addition to other infectious diseases, in light of the continued bombing and the decomposition of bodies under the rubble.
The WHO issued a stark warning about the deadly mix of hunger and disease jeopardizing the lives of over 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. And immediate action has never been more urgent. A global humanitarian plan must be launched to avert an epidemic disaster.
As the massive displacement of people continues throughout the Gaza Strip, with some families forced to move more than once and many taking shelter in overcrowded health facilities, my colleagues and I at the World Health Organization remain extremely concerned about the increasing threat of infectious diseases.
The relentless bombing and systematic destruction inflicted by the Zionist occupation on all facets of life in Gaza, coupled with the deliberate deprivation of essential conditions for Palestinians in the besieged Strip, crystallize a heinous genocide, performed through weapons, starvation and merciless executions. This dire situation demands immediate global attention and intervention to prevent further tragedy and loss of innocent lives.
On Saturday, the Palestinian resistance reported that around 20 Zionist soldiers were killed and wounded west of Gaza City. Al-Qassam brigades engaged in clashes with Zionist special forces in Sheikh Radwan, resulting in the casualties. The military wing of Hamas targeted a Zionist Merkava tank, and Al-Quds brigades bombed Zionist forces in Bani Suhaila, east of Khan Yunis. The Golani Brigade in the Zionist forces admitted to 41 soldiers killed in Operation Al-Aqsa flood. 7 soldiers from the elite brigade were reported killed in confrontations, including the battalion commander. The Palestinian resistance targeted sites of the Zionist forces in the Gaza Strip, engaging in clashes and bombing vehicles in various locations. And earlier on Friday, the International Court of Justice revealed that South Africa filed a request to commence proceedings against the Zionist entity, accusing it of committing genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. The court, citing South Africa's request, noted that Israel's actions and omissions demonstrate characteristics of genocide driven by the specific intent to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza.
Acts and omissions by Israel are genocidal in character, as they are committed with the requisite specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza as a part of the broader Palestinian national, racial and ethnical group. The conduct of Israel through its state organs, state agents, and other persons and entities acting on its instructions or under its direction, control or influence in relation to Palestinians in Gaza is in violation of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. Israel, since 7 October 2023 in particular, has failed to prevent genocide and has failed to prosecute the direct and public incitement to genocide that Israel has engaged in, is engaging in, and risks further engaging in genocidal acts against the Palestinian people in Gaza.
And in response, Palestine applauds South Africa for filing a case in The Hague against the Zionist entity for committing genocide in Gaza. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry urges the International Court of Justice to swiftly respond, preventing the crime and calling for a decision to cease aggression and open fire. Omar Awadallah, the Palestinian Assistant Foreign Minister for the UN, sees South Africa's move as the first concrete action against the Zionist entity, highlighting its significance as both countries are members of the 1948 United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide.
Many Arab and foreign countries have declared that Israel is committing a war crime, but until now South Africa is the country that has taken an additional step in the international system to hold Israel accountable for this crime and to prevent its commission and punish it, as stipulated in the United Nations Convention. The step would raise a controversial case before the International Court of Justice, considering that Israel is violating the provisions of this agreement with reference to Article 9 thereof. This step is effective and not just a statement.
To international reaction now, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres voiced concern over the escalating conflict in Gaza, deeming it with devastating consequences for the entire Middle East region. In a statement, Guterres warned of the continued risk of a broader regional tension as the conflict persists, citing the potential for escalation and miscalculation by multiple actors. He also emphasized the extremely worrying escalation of violence in the occupied West Bank.
Must be a year for rebuilding trust and restoring hope.
The escalation of violence in the occupied West Bank, including intensified operations by Israeli security forces, raising death tolls, settler violence, and Palestinian attacks on Israelis, is deeply disturbing. The daily exchange of fire across the blue line threatens to spark a broader escalation between Israel and Lebanon and affects in regional stability. The Secretary General urges all parties to exercise the utmost restraint and take urgent steps to calm tension in the region.
Still with international reaction, but this time with the popular opinion. In Rabat, Morocco, activists rallied at the parliament demanding an end to normalization between the Makhzen regime and the Zionist entity. Organized by the National Action Group for Palestine on a National Day of Rage, demonstrators denounced U.S. President Joe Biden's support for the Zionist aggression on Gaza. They called for closing the Zionist liaison office in Rabat. And similarly, over 70 demonstrations across Moroccan cities echoed demands to stop genocide in Gaza, abolish normalization, expel the Zionist liaison office, and dissolve the so-called Zionist Moroccan Parliamentary Friendship Group. Similarly, on Saturday, massive demonstrations erupted in several cities and world capitals condemning Zionist aggression in Gaza. Thousands gathered in Paris, Berlin, Vienna, Helsingborg, and Eindhoven, demanding a ceasefire and humanitarian aid for Gaza. Demonstrators raised Palestinian flags, denounced Zionist crimes, and called for an end to double standards. In Australia, dozens rallied in Sydney and Melbourne, condemning Western complicity with the Zionist occupation. They demanded an end to Zionist violations and urged the Australian government to sever ties, and called as well for a ceasefire.
Many of my friends and their families are being slaughtered every day. Every day there are new crimes. Of course, all the houses are completely destroyed. All the civilian structures are destroyed. The hospitals, the schools, the ambulances. There is nothing. There is nothing and no one is safe in Gaza.
French authorities have prohibited a solidarity demonstration with Palestine scheduled on Champs-Élysées Avenue in Paris this Sunday. The Director of Security in Paris, Laurence Nunez, urged Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin to prevent it. Similarly, German authorities have banned a pro-Palestine march planned for New Year's Eve in Berlin. The Berlin police stated that the march, under the slogan "No Celebration During Genocide," set for the New Köln neighborhood, would not be allowed due to the risk of potential violent incidents based on past experiences. And in other news, China's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Gang Shuang, expressed China's backing for the state of Palestine's full membership in the United Nations. During an emergency session of the UN Security Council addressing the Gaza Strip situation, Shuang called for an immediate cessation of what he termed indiscriminate military attacks and an end to the collective punishment of Gazans.
China proposes to convene an international peace conference on a large scale and greater scope with more effectiveness to expedite the information and implementation of a timetable and roadmap for a two-state solution. We support Palestine in becoming a full member of the UN and advocate for the prompt resumption of direct negotiations between Israel and Palestine.
And in another development, the Zionist occupation artillery targeted several times in southern Lebanon along the border with occupied Palestine on Saturday. The Lebanese National News Agency reported that the bombing hit the vicinity of Deir Harfa, Al Jabain, and Wadi Hamul on the southern border. Additionally, a Zionist drone bombed a civilian car in Eira Ashab with no reported casualties. Similarly, the Syrian Ministry of Defense revealed that the Zionist occupation conducted an airstrike or an air attack from the west of Latakia, targeting several locations south of Aleppo. The Syrian news agency SANA, citing a military source, reported that occupation aircraft launched the attack from the Mediterranean Sea direction, causing material losses in the targeted areas. Back to Algeria now. Algerian Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi inaugurated Rabia Kharfi as the new president of the Economic, Social and Environmental Council. Mr. Al-Arbawi highlighted the president's commitment to elevating the council's role in supporting government activities and fostering dialogue on economic, social and environmental issues. He called for increased contributions from civil society and the Algerian community abroad to enhance national development efforts.
You will also be able to respond to the aspirations of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to make this council an effective and interactive auxiliary tool with the activity of the government and all state institutions. I call in particular to strengthen and expand the involvement and contribution of all segments of civil society, as well as members of the Algerian community abroad, to strengthen this economic and social development process drawn up by Mr. President, who truly devotes great attention to this council as a framework for dialogue, consultation, analysis, and provocative studies.
To neighboring Tunisia now, the Tunisian presidency has extended the state of emergency in place since November 2015 for an additional month. The official order issued in the latest official gazette extends the states of emergency throughout the country from January 1st to the 30th. The state of emergency was initially imposed after a bombing targeted buses transporting presidential security personnel on November 24, 2015, in central Tunis. 12 security personnel were killed then, and 16 others were injured. This news comes as Tunisian authorities announced the arrest of 3 individuals in different regions of the country on charges of belonging to a terrorist organization. The arrests were made during joint patrols, and the individuals received prison sentences ranging from 5 to 7 years. The World Health Organization urgently calls for action to address the health and humanitarian crisis in Sudan. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus urged increased financial aid on the X platform to meet urgent health needs. 7 million displaced, 1.5 million seeking refuge in neighboring countries, and over 12,000 killed in the ongoing conflict, as estimated by the United Nations and NGOs.
Urgent action is needed to stop the escalation of the conflict in Sudan, where humanitarian and health crises are worsening, with the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people, most of them women and children, while the World Health Organization and its partners respond to acute health needs, in particular by controlling the spread of diseases and combating threats of malnutrition.
To another topical news, a Ukrainian bombing in Belgrade, Russia, killed 14 and injured 108. Belgrade district governor reported the Ukrainian army's attack resulted in 2 children's deaths. Later on, Russian emergency services updated the total to 6 deaths and 24 injuries. More details with Islam Said.
In Belgrade, Russia, 14 people, including 2 children, were killed, and more than 100 were injured due to apparent overnight Ukrainian strikes on a residential area. Firefighters battled the flames in daylight after the reported shelling.
My neighbor's wife called me. She said Sasha was killed. That's when there was a loud rumble, the last one, very strong. I jumped outside in what I was wearing, went in, opened the door in the corridor, and he was lying with his legs facing the entrance. There was a shed here. That's the shed that saved my house.
Moscow accuses Kiev of the attack, prompting a request for a UN Security Council meeting. Russia's defense ministry, having neutralized 13 rockets, identifies the ammunition used and vows that the assault will not be without consequences.
Today, the Kyiv regime attempted an indiscriminate combined strike on the city of Belgorod with 2 Alka missiles armed with prohibited cluster ammunition, as well as Czech-made Vampire MLRS missiles. Air defense systems intercepted the Alka missiles and most of the Vampire MLRS rockets. Several rockets and cluster parts from the downed Alka missiles hit the city of Belgorod. This crime will not go unpunished.
Kiev has not issued an official comment at this time. However, Ukrainian news sources, citing local accounts, reported that Ukrainian forces targeted military sites in Belgrade in retaliation for the Russian bombing of the Ukrainian cities the day before, claiming the lives of over 30 people.
Let's head to more stories making headlines around the globe with Salman Assef.
Djibouti will host a crucial meeting next week for the conflicting parties in Sudan, according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs Mahmoud Ali Youssef. As the chairman of the Intergovernmental Authority for Development in East Africa, Djibouti aims to facilitate Sudanese dialogue. However, specific details about the meeting's agenda or participating parties were not provided. Denis Kadima, the head of the Independent National Electoral Commission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, announced that the preliminary results of the presidential elections will be disclosed on Sunday. Kadima emphasized the transparency of the electoral process, highlighting factors confirming the credibility of the partial results, such as their publication by polling centers to eliminate any ambiguity. The UN Secretary Council passed a resolution urging the appointment of a special envoy for Afghanistan to boost interactions with Kabul and the Taliban. 13 members voted in favor, 2 abstained, supporting a November 2021 report proposing enhanced engagement post-Taliban return. Argentine President Javier Milei stated that Argentina won't join the BRICS bloc this year, citing differences in government decisions and foreign policy compared to the previous administration. Milei assured that this choice would hinder Argentina's commitment to strengthening bilateral ties, particularly for boosting trade and investment with BRICS members.
Well, that concludes our program. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, good night and take care.